Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. How well are you prepared for a national breakup? I know that some of you really truly think it's a high priority that you're preparing for a national breakup, a national divorce, or to use that old scary bad word, secession. I know some of you are thinking that down that path, and then there's many of you that thinks that it's never ever going to happen. And I'm not here to argue or to debate either side. I'm just here to ask you, are you at least considering the possibility of it happening, and are you preparing for it? Because my guess is that we're closer to that point right now than we've ever been since 1861. Just prior to the previous secession of states. We're watching this country just be ripped apart by many factors, not just any one thing. Ideology is a really big one. There is such a divide amongst the people, and it's not just a left or right or one side or the other. It's multiple sides, multiple divisions within divisions that we are seeing happen. This past weekend, well, we're still on the weekend, but I guess yesterday, Friday and Saturday, we saw, again, an uptick in protests and violence across the country in some major cities because of this Transgender Day thing. And we're seeing that that's becoming kind of the new hot topic. You know, we had the health crisis, and then we had the George Floyd thing. We've had a few other things. The Ukraine, that was a big one. And then now it's this. We're watching this one issue right after another. They seem to ride each other's coattails into becoming the new prominent thing of another issue that is just building walls and pulling us apart as a people. When you add that to all of the other things that are going on, wars and economic strife and just general confusion and chaos, one has to at least start entertaining the thought that a national divorce or a separation of states or a secession of some form or fashion could possibly be in our future. And I think that it's, even if it may not be something you believe will definitely happen, I think it's definitely something you should start preparing for. And amongst the normal things that you would prepare for any kind of major catastrophe, which is just stocking up on food, having your supplies, becoming as self-sufficient as possible, building strong local economies is a big one. That's something you should do, and that's much less dramatic and difficult than it sounds. It's basically you and the people around you figuring out what you have to offer each other, what skills that you can share and offer for trade, and what products can you produce that you can offer for trade. It's not quite as dramatic as it sounds. It's just simply going back to some older methods that this country was really founded upon, of strong local economies. Also kind of realizing that we have to get away from a lot of federal stuff. So if you're highly dependent upon a federal paycheck, and that's going to be very difficult for a lot of you, I understand. Social Security, disability, things like that, it's going to be very difficult. Just this past week, it came out that the Social Security fund is expected to be completely drained by the year 2023. That's 10 years from now. How many of you will still be, or most likely be, at the point of becoming dependent upon Social Security checks? And if nothing is done, it will be drained within 10 years. Something to think about, something to start planning for. And I know that's difficult. A lot of you are thinking, I don't know how to get around this one. I get actually this asked almost more than anything else. What do I do about my Social Security? What do I do about disability? All these kind of things. And honestly, I don't have an answer other than because if you're already using it, you're beyond the point really of planning ahead. you're just going to have to figure out ways to become as self-sufficient as possible, get plugged into a community, and maybe, find yourself, if you're able to, trying to earn an income in some form or fashion. That's a difficult one. We've created a system highly dependent upon the federal government, a government that's become far too large and far too encroaching upon our liberties. And now we're trying to deal with the ramifications of that. And that's not putting anyone down that's dependent upon those systems. Also, the federal money system, the Federal Reserve currency, things like that. I mentioned last night on our live stream that here in Missouri, tomorrow actually it is, there is a hearing at the state capitol on a Senate bill, a House bill. It's already passed the Senate, but now it's in the House, to try to make Missouri a gold and silver state, that you can use it for, transactions, and that the state of Missouri will hold part of its reserves in gold and silver. This could very easily open the doors to having gold and silver depositories here in Missouri, and even potentially banks like which is the only one, the UPMA bank that I've mentioned numerous times on here. That's not part of the Federal Reserve System. They are a completely gold-backed bank. It's possible to open the doors for places like that. There are other states that are working on similar legislation, and we're starting to see states work on legislation to bring about more independence within the states. Some similar things would be the Second Amendment Preservation Act that we've seen here in Missouri and other states, that says, the federal government can't come in and use their energy, their money, and stomp on our citizens' rights when it comes to the Second Amendment. We're seeing things like that happen. And so I would encourage you folks to start to think along those lines. It's a little different than a complete collapse of everything, because, there would be government. There would be an existence of a system. But what can you do in your life, your homestead, your family, your community, to prepare for national divorce? Because while it's certainly not a guaranteed thing, as we continue going down this path of just all-out chaos, and especially the growing divide amongst the American people, I think we're getting to a more likely scenario on at least some level of some kind of national divorce. I suspect it would look very, very different than the war between the states. I don't expect to see armies forming on either side and fighting each other, although we could see certain levels of violence throughout the country if something like this happens. And I don't even necessarily expect to see it be a regional thing. In the past it was the South versus the North. You all know that. I think that this could just be all over. You could even see certain states try to pull apart, where maybe Northern California versus Southern California, and so on. The point is that we're in a time period for this country that we've really never been before. And honestly, I think very few civilizations and cultures have been in a place like this before, where there's just so many things going on that it's really becoming difficult to predict what's really happening. As an example, I was saying last night on our live stream, was talking about how these economists out there, and really, as best as I can tell, all of them, whether they're conservative or liberal, they make all these predictions of what they think is going to happen with banks and with the U.S. dollar and all this, but they do it all from a perspective of just looking at the economy and what's going on with that. And it's like they don't have a very holistic view and factor in, other social things that's happening. Do they consider what's going on with the great divide between American people, the left and the right? Do they consider things like the degradation of morality and family and traditional values, and how that factors in? Do they consider what's going on in other countries and how they view America, how they view American military and American dominance or the lack thereof anymore? Or the fact that many countries see America's, faltering and degrading moral standards as being a major factor in how they interact with us anymore. We're seeing things happen on a grand scale, and it's not like we're seeing a lot of people really fully understand the totality of what's going on. And when you do that and you fully understand, you can start to see the real possibilities that here just in America alone that we could start seeing some major division happening. I mean, we already are, but I'm talking on a real level that would be similar to, say, a civil war that we've seen in the past. So it's something to certainly consider, and I don't have all the answers. I don't. I mean, I have some suggestions that I've mentioned, but I would suggest strongly that you start at least considering this, because as we see things happen, we've got Trump supposed to be turning himself in to be arrested Tuesday. That right there alone, there's another major division that's happening right there. We've got one side that could care less of how ridiculous it is that these charges are being brought. They just want to see this man in prison, no matter what. They don't care if it's legitimate. They don't care if it's a legal way of doing it. It doesn't matter. There's this Trump derangement syndrome has gotten so deep within them, they don't care. And then you've got the other side, his supporters, that many, I think, would go to hell and back for him. And so we're seeing another issue come up that's very much potentially pulling us apart even further. So with all the preparations that you're working on, all the things that you're trying to keep on your radar, because there's a lot, and a lot of it factors in to our future and how things are falling apart, I think certainly we should be paying attention to the real possibility that this country is just being ripped apart in some type of divorce or, I don't know, some type of secession of some sort. Could very well happen, and we have to prepare for that. So folks, continue doing that and figuring out ways that you can separate yourself from a federal system that we have, this national system that we have, whether it be the dependency upon the benefits, the dependency on the currency, whatever it is, we have to start doing this. And of course, as we see the currency itself lose its prominence, that would be, once again, another good reason for states to start to pull apart. If there's no currency binding us together, then there's even less of a reason for us being pulled together. Not saying this is going to happen, but I think it is definitely a possibility, and we have to continue preparing for that, because something like this could actually spiral out of control, I think, very quickly in this country, as we've seen over the last few years of how things escalate very rapidly in different segments of society. Bottom line is it's time to get your houses in order and prepare mentally, physically, and spiritually. Folks, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.